Welcome to Scorched Earth and the general reading for the sign of Taurus, Sun, Moon or Ascendant for the month of November 2024. I hope you are well. We are using the Night Sun Tarot for you today. Before we begin, I'd just like to apologise for these readings coming out so late as they have. My house needed an emergency rewire. It was an emergency. And so that knocked all of my work back about a week because the electricity wasn't on. So, additionally, then on top of that, I think I got myself so stressed out with it. I came down with a I don't know. I feel like my immune system took a kicking anyway. So maybe there's a lesson in that for me. I'll work out what it is at some point. Anywho, additionally, if the reading resonates with you and you'd like to go a little bit deeper, there will be an extended that you can access at the end. That's via the description box, link in the description box. And that's link number 1. Link number 2 is to my private community, which is the Order of the Phoenix over on the Circle platform. There you can get access to all of the extended content for no extra cost beyond the membership fee and hang out with a truly extraordinary group of people. So if that sounds like it's your bag, you know what to do with that link. Now, very interesting to me that Taurus should have ended up being the last sign. I can't remember when the last time it was that Taurus came out last. At the very least, you tend to come out either right at the beginning or somewhere in the middle. But it's something that I've noticed over the years is whichever sign comes out last is usually the one that's got the most going on. And that's saying something given what I've been seeing across the signs this time. So, yeah, let's have a look into it and see what's going on with you. Could I have 3 cards for Taurus, please? There's the first one. We have the 7 of Wands. Current energy for Taurus, please. Oh, goodness. We have the 10 of Cups and the 8 of Cups. And what's coming towards Taurus for the rest of November, please? Well, of course, it is the Empress card, right? The Empress card represents either Taurus or Libra because it is broadly a Venus card, right? And those two signs both correspond to Taurus, to Libra. There, I did it again. To Venus. Hello. Let's get accurate, shall we? We have the Chariot card at the bottom of the deck. There is something really quite extraordinary that I'm seeing happening across these cards here, and I think the word, and I'm so comfortable in what I'm seeing here, I'm actually going to get my pen and write this down before I forget it, because I will forget by the end of the reading. What I'm seeing is catharsis. That is a C, I promise. I've just wrote it really scrappily. There is a huge cathartic process that you are undergoing here, and it's so powerful. It's pushing you on to the next level. Now, let's get some clarifiers out and see what's going on beneath the surface. Why is the 7 of Wands here, please? Why is the 7 of Wands here for Taurus? Whoa. Interesting. 8 of Cups in the reverse. And the Lover's card. Tell me about the 10 of Cups and the 8 of Cups, please. Ooh, what do we have here? We have the High Priestess. We have the 2 of Cups. We have the 9 of Pentacles. Whoa. Oh, goodness, that's strong. And the 9 of Pentacles. And tell me about the Empress card, please. Why is that here for Taurus? We have the Knight of Pentacles. Virgo energy. We also have the 10 of Wands and the Empress again. Of course we do. This whole reading is underpinned by the energy of the Star and the Chariot. And like, I don't know how many of you read tarot, but I would imagine even if you have a passing acquaintance with it, right, you can see there's a really powerful undercurrent and mayhap even overcurrent. And I think possibly that's what we're seeing here. It is the transition to it being an undercurrent that you feel but can't really explain, into somewhat of an overcurrent that is consciously acknowledged and consciously experienced. That's how I would put this. So let's start over here with this Seven of Wands. Now the Seven of Wands we talk about in terms of defensiveness or guardedness, right? Sometimes we talk about protection and whatnot. And the defensive guarded aspect of this isn't always a useful one, right? So sometimes when we're talking about this, we're talking about the potential for triggers. We're talking about the potential for kind of emotional needling that we in some way or another guard against, right? Now that's a fearful position. It's not a terribly helpful one, but it's one that most people at most times would recognize that there would be something within them that would deal with things in that way. The protective aspect of it, sometimes it's the protection of the people, more often it's the protection of ourselves, right? And that can be coming from a healthy place, I'm not standing for anyone's shit, or it can be, please don't attack me, I can't deal with the emotions that are going on inside. Now, what's really interesting in the Knights on Tarot is the way that there is a very peaceful symmetry about this card, right? This is Mars in Leo. And like I said, you know, the version of it that we usually see in a standard tarot deck, like the Waite Smith, for example, has it has qualities of aggression and needing to defend, needing to guard against. There's certainly a lot of action in it. And we don't have that here. It's a very peaceful symmetry where the two snakes at the top, and these kind of weird woody snake things are the ones in this deck, the two snakes at the top are looking at themselves. Now, there's such a fundamental sense of alignment with self in that Mars in Leo card right there, that it feels less about the need to forcefully assert or forcefully defend or forcefully protect oneself. It seems more like truly, for the first time, you are seeing yourself as the bull that you are. Now, we talked about this a lot in 2020, the whole you're a bull, not a cow. People still bring that up to me 4 years later and say, you have no idea how much that changed my life. Which I think is amazing. I always love to hear people saying that. Had a bit of coffee there. But there is a huge difference between intellectually understanding something, right? And I think that's what happened in 2020, kind of like a light bulb went on in lots of Taurus's heads, whereby they could see the difference between presenting as a bull and presenting as a cow and everything that went with that, right? That gave them a route to self-improvement. And they took it, you all took it. So then there became a state of emotional recognition in that, right? And so Taurus began to adjust themselves and began to look for what was theirs to do and theirs to control. But it's been a roller coaster, as you would expect, because Uranus has been in your sign since 2018. Now, as he's, you know, kind of sorting to leave as he is, what we're going to see, and I think that we always see towards the end of any particular significant transit, is maybe it's not a peak experience of the roller coaster, because that gives it more undulations that were kind of a little bit like, you know, but more a peak expression of everything that has been learned during that time. So this very symmetrical, very peaceful expression of how you put your energy out into the world, how you go about moving around in the world, is not just an intellectual appreciation. It is not just an emotional acknowledgement. It is now in your actions. You know, who was I talking to today? Which sign was it? Gemini, I think. And I was talking about, you know, the point where we ambulate our meat sack around, right? And we interact with other people. We put ourselves out there. We do things. That really being the cumulative point of everything that we've learned, right? All the thoughts, all the emotions coming together to create a particular course of action. And here we have a sense of boldness and bravery that is not coming from a place of fear. It is coming from a place of a desire for expansion and movement forwards. And it's so peaceful. This is the thing here. Like, it's so peaceful. And we've got the Eight of Cups in reverse and the Lover's card. Now, some part of what's happening here has, I think, involved an emotional journey, or a journey into the emotional building blocks that got you to where you are right now. You know, this process of increased self-awareness and self-progression and all that kind of thing, by necessity involves, I think, going back and checking in with yourself periodically to see what it is that's changed in how you feel right now versus the last time you checked in on yourself. And I think it's really surprised you quite how much you have not only changed but shifted and balanced yourself out. I mean, we're seeing this peaceful symmetry in this card here. We're seeing a peaceful symmetry in the Lover's card here. And we've got this emotional return. Now, it is this idea of the emotional return, interestingly. Well, it wasn't even that, but it's really solidified the concept for me, right? I felt the catharsis here, but we've got confirmation of it down here. I often say to people who worry that they haven't done enough work, or they haven't changed enough, or they haven't put in enough effort, you know, if you can look back at an old situation that you've been in, and you can say, in all honesty, all things being equal, if I was presented with the same situation again, in all likelihood I would deal with it very differently, then congratulations, the lesson has permeated through and it has changed you. And what's happened here, I think, is that you've done this check-in with yourself that you are accustomed now to doing, because you have been so dedicated and so disciplined about your own personal work, that it's not that the fight in you is lost. It's just that the energy is being directed where it needs to go, right? This state of fear that I think most Tauruses can recognise that they have been in at various points in their life, and how that has dictated their actions and their feelings and their words, and definitely an internal narrative with themselves. Instead of fear, instead of a need to defend, instead of a need to self-flagellate, potentially, instead we have this peaceful symmetry. And the Lover's card here feels like a blessing, because it indicates free will. Ultimately, it indicates consent. It's how we choose to align with the universe and understand that it is a choice. And Taurus, despite your emotional conditioning, despite all of the difficult situations that you have been through, or maybe because of those, you now find yourself in a position where you consent to be exactly what you're supposed to be, which is a bull, not a cow, right? We're not making ourselves small anymore. We are big, we are taking up room, we have something to say, we have something to do, we have something to express, we have things to feel and think. And you feel so staunch to me, but there's nothing even remotely aggressive or defensive about it. It's just like, I'm here. When we come at things from a place of fear, we hemorrhage a lot of energy out of that, creative energy, all manner of types of energy. And we walk around in a state of complete exhaustion. When we seal up all of the places where we have been hemorrhaging that kind of energy, right? When we refuse to come from this state of fear and instead come from a place of peace, we have a shitload more energy at our disposal than ever we had before. And I think that you have found a way to channel that. I think whether it's on a particular project, whether it's on a particular relationship, whether it's on just the way that you choose to live your life right now, it feels to me like you are exploring creative potential from a very peaceful place, completely unencumbered by what you have experienced. We're looking at things now refusing to consent to simply be a product of our upbringing. There's something that's been pushed above and beyond here, Taurus. And it's putting you in a really powerful position. So when we move into your current energy, we have the Ten of Cups and we have the Eight of Cups. Now the Ten of Cups for me is always about the collective. And Taurus, more than a lot of other signs, it's always been concerned about the well-being of the collective. As we have established over many, many years. In fact, Taurus is one of those signs whose learning path had a lot to do with understanding that a sense of self was important and that you were entitled to, and you were being asked by the universe to learn how to put yourself first in a healthy, loving way so that you may be of more service to the collective than you could be otherwise, right? And most Tauruses I know have always been in that state of giving and giving and giving to the point of, almost depletion, but then you're a Taurus and you've got more stamina than most, and so you just keep going, but it hasn't felt good to you. Now, the Eight of Cups is about moving away from a particular emotion. So we could see how this would be you, right? There was one last check-in. No, everything's different. And now we are ready to move away from what was before. But I can't help but feel that there's something about the experience that you've had that is now positioning you to be able to help others to do the same. I've been banging on about this for ages for you, Taurus. Like, what are we up to? A year? 18 months? Teacher, leader, guide. We've been talking about this a lot. And it's not just for you, to be fair. It's coming up with a lot of other signs as well. But whereas when I first brought it up about 18 months ago, Tauruses were harumphing at me and saying, "Oh, I'm not sure I'm terribly comfortable with that. I don't like that idea. No. I've noticed that there's a distinct dip in the resistance that is being put up by Tauruses. And maybe this is because you've realised you don't need to fight yourself on this. Wherever, those feelings that made you want to express resistance came from, I feel like they have been processed and released, because in all likelihood they were coming from a place of, low self-worth, not feeling like you were enough, desperately wanting to be, an expert and not quite feeling like you were an expert in things. All of this kind of tracking back to, I'm not sure I can, or I don't trust myself too. When you dig around in the internal darkness a little bit, everything usually coming back to this, I'm afraid I'm not enough. Now I've sensed that resistance in the collective dropping, and more of an acceptance of, well, this is a natural corollary of what I have experienced and why I am here. I do think that this is starting to play out. Now, it could be that, this is simply limited to your friends and your family at this point. How do you take your feelings, the feelings that kind of weigh you down like a yoke around the neck, right? And who of all of the animals is going to understand that more than Taurus, right? The yoke around the neck. How do you get to the point where you can release the weight? How do you free yourself? Well, you've worked out how to do it now. And so it follows that others would naturally be looking to you to find out how you did it. I do believe this quite strongly, and I do recall speaking to exactly this in 2020. And in God's honest truth, I didn't expect in 2024 we'd still be more or less experiencing the same sort of thing. But I did feel like there was the collective shadow of humanity was on the rise. And the best tool that we had to combat that was to work with our own shadow, right? To do our own personal work, find out what it was that's holding us back, and then fucking stop it. Essentially, like, that was our contribution to the collective unconscious. And I mean, can anybody say with any degree of certainty that what may well have been true then in 2020 is not still equally as true in 2024? I'm not sure that they can, because we haven't quite hit that experience of peak shadow yet. And maybe that experience of peak shadow is the point where, you know, a majority of people recognize that there is personal work to do. Now, like I said, this is about the herd. It is about the emotional well-being of more than just you, and certainly more than just you and one other, right? So we're not talking about your most personal one-on-one relationships here, although there could be a sequence of one-on-one relationships we see represented by a whole. It's your community, it's your family en masse, it's your friendship groups en masse, it is the community that you live in en masse, it is humanity, it is nations, it is all of those. It's talking about a healthy expression of what it is to be in amongst other people, rubbing around and being confident enough to be who you are within the middle of that, right? Not losing one's identity to the group. But all of this coming up in the context of you beginning to help. So you might be seeing this playing out in small ways. You might see people coming to you, friends coming to you, family members coming to you, go, Taurus, I'm really fucking struggling with this. And I don't know how to deal with it. I think probably, Taurus, you've experienced that a lot over the course of your life, but I think that there's probably an uptick in it somewhere. You might be somebody who, I don't know, does what I do, right? You might be on YouTube, you might be reading cards, or you might be doing something else, and you're starting to notice that more people are tuning into what it is that you have to say. Now, there's a shift going on in the collective unconscious, and everything that you've done so far, you have done it without a map. The one sign that demanded the map before they made any kind of moves forwards, which I do think is where Taurus was initially, are now, very successfully navigating through life despite, or perhaps because of, what they have endured, what they have learned to process, what they have released in themselves, so on and so forth. I completely forgot how I started that sentence. The collective unconscious, right? So the very point of contact with the planet, fixed Earth, Taurus, has shifted, changed, become more peaceful, despite everything that's gone on. And then others who are also sensing the shift in the collective unconscious and are dealing with things that are coming up to the surface for them, are looking for guides, teachers, leaders to help them transit this in the same way as you have. I mean, quite simply, without stating it overtly, I'm going to state it overtly. You are a success story, Taurus. And I don't know if you thought about yourself in those terms yet, and whether you find something potentially confrontational just in the idea of that. I remember somebody saying to me only just a few months ago, oh, you're so successful. And I swear to God, I almost threw up on my own shoes. Like, genuinely, I didn't know what to do with that. That really upset me. In the best possible way. So I was kind of slightly triggered by it, and I was like, well, okay, that's weird. What's going on there? And I needed to dig into that. And that was almost a complete dissociation from how other people see me, right? Such that I couldn't recognise what they were talking about in myself. Well, that revealed a blind spot, and that gave me something to work with, so I always appreciate that, right? But by the same token, like, I don't think that you see how successful you are now perceived to be by other people, and it's nothing to do with material success. I want to be really, really clear about that, Taurus. I know that that's important. But I do think that everything that is you is shifted so much and needed to shift. Or the things that you are now peaceful about, the way that you are now aligned, is because there's been a moving away from the emotional stuff that was keeping you yoked, right? And a lot of that would have revolved around financial security, material security, all that sort of stuff, right? Oh, you are this person, this Nine of Pentacles, this independent person who has, to all intents and purposes, made it on their own. And like I said, is it in spite of what you've experienced, or is it because of what you've experienced and the willingness that you have to put your whole self into what you see? Now, we've got the Two of Cups there. And this is saying on a collective level, whether this is a conscious collective, friends, family, or that kind of thing, or on a subconscious collective level, which is to say the collective unconscious, right? You are making waves. There are ways in which you are helping people now, collectively, but also one-on-one. I wouldn't be surprised to hear that there are Tauruses who are setting up businesses in the healing or esoteric modalities. You know, I in fact would not be surprised to hear about the success stories of any Taurus at all at this point, because you've worked so fucking hard for it. Of course it was going to happen, right? But you worked in the right way. Before, it was about trying to control your environment and then getting anxious when it wasn't going the way that you needed it to go for your personal comfort, your personal safety. You have consistently put yourself outside of your comfort zone again and again and again. And sometimes it might have been involuntary. Sometimes you might have been a little bit unwilling. But ultimately, you've always seen the job through to the end. Latterly, it has been a willing putting yourself out there. It doesn't mean that you haven't been afraid of what might happen. But the difference is that you did it anyway. So we've got the High Priestess here. And you, dear Taurus, are a conduit. Now, when we talk about conduits, I mean, there's often this kind of like from top to bottom kind of thing going on, right? And the emphasis is almost kind of like in the top, the receiving end here. But you're fixed earth. And I don't know if what you've managed to do here is to create a direct line of contact between the ether and the literal ground that is almost discharging into the earth. It's healing something. Like, you're walking around with an aura now, Taurus, of healer, of oracle, of wise person, of peaceful symmetry. And it's been done through this very cathartic work of self. Now, all of your resources belong to you. I'm not just talking about your money. I'm talking about your time. I'm talking about your boundaries. I'm talking about where your energy goes. It's all yours. You're not hemorrhaging it out anywhere. You're not farming it out for anywhere. Like, it's yours. So you get to decide where it goes now, which means you get to decide whether today is the day you're going to put yourself out of your comfort zone, or whether today is a day that you get to, I don't know, sit and chill and watch Netflix or something like that, right? Like, you are demonstrating an ownership over self that other people are looking at and going, I want that. How has Taurus done that? I want to know how to do it. I mean, the way that I'm reading this here, Taurus, is that you are a gift to the collective, and you haven't even noticed it yet. Maybe over the course of the next few months, as Uranus finishes up in your sign, you might appreciate that a little bit more about yourself. But if you want to understand why it is that suddenly people seem to be reaching out to you and asking your advice, trying to get your perspective on what it is, it's not accidental. It's not because they happen to know that you're at home. It's because they want to take your view and see how they can apply it to their own lives. We've got the Star card here. And that's quite interesting because it represents Aquarius. And Aquarius is a sign that's getting a lot of attention at the moment, rightly so, because Pluto is about to move in for the final time into the sign of Aquarius, and it's going to be there for 20 years. We've got a generation-defining planetary transit going on here. But it's worth bearing in mind that anything that happens in the sign of Aquarius is going to square you. It's going to cause a bit of tension. It's going to cause a bit of friction. It's going to propel growth. So that's the first thing to notice. But I do think for Taurus specifically, the tension around the growth is less to do with what you are doing with yourself internally, and it's more to do with what you are turning into. So it could well be, and I think that this would be true, that for most Tauruses, one-on-one advice session is actually something that you wouldn't even think twice about. Of course you would do that, that would be fine. And maybe we could even scale it up a little bit. Right, this is a group of friends. Maybe it's a few people that you got to get together, you know, to give an advice session, like a mutual assistance thing. I know about this thing, you know about this thing, let's swap notes, right? What I think Taurus is entirely unprepared for, but only consciously, I think subconsciously you are prepared for this, is how your star is now in ascendance. Right? The star card for me is a card of great vulnerability, and we can see that she's burnt naked on this card, but it's a card of increased exposure. Also, obviously, it's a card of authentically expressing everything that you are, and by virtue of that, becoming the star that guides other people. Now, I don't think for a second that every single Taurus that I'm speaking to right now is going to have, say, their own YouTube channel that's about to blow up, or, you know, they've launched an online course that's about to blow up, or something like that. But don't underestimate how many of you there probably are for whom that is true. Be definitely at least a 40% of you. Don't know where that stat's coming from, but I feel it here. For others of you, this is going, well, no, you see, in all senses, you are successful now. And so from here, it's just the climb. You just keep climbing up, and you keep acquiring new people who are wanting your guidance. They're wanting your direction. They're wanting what you know, what you feel, how you are, and they want to know how to apply it to themselves. Right? Big scale, small scale, it doesn't really matter. Like, your reputation at this point is almost preceding you, Taurus. That's how it feels to me. So when we come over to here, to what the rest of November has to offer, we have double Empress energy. Interestingly enough, I'll just tell you this, I there are a couple of cards and a couple of signs that I find it really difficult to shoehorn the signs into, right? So you have the Magician, which is ruled by Mercury, and therefore can indicate both Virgo and Gemini. I really struggle with that. For me, the Magician is a Gemini card. It's very difficult to see how Virgo would fit in there to me. Obviously it does, but it doesn't come as naturally. Equally, with the Empress card, it feels for me to be much more redolent with Taurus energy than ever it would be Libra. And I can see the reasons why Libra might apply. I mean, obviously, it's represented by Venus, so it's going to apply. But it feels to me like Taurus all day long, because it's about life, it's about creative expression, it's about the literal gestation of one thing, whether that's an idea, an approach, a whole personal revolution that we are now carrying a banner around for, because we can't help it, because we're walking around in peaceful symmetry. I mean, look at this. The Star, the Lovers, the High Priestess, the Empress twice, no less, and the Chariot. You're driving forwards. You are successful now. Right? If you're throwing up onto your shoes, stop it. Get over it. Right? Find a way to put that in the right place in your head, right? Because it's important for you to do so. Because whilst you do not accept this, you're not really in a position to be able to share the wisdom that you now have, right? And the universe is kind of shaping you to be that person. So you've got a bit of time to adjust, but I think for most of you, because you've stopped resisting the teacher, leader, guide thing that I've been talking about for like 18 months, less of an issue. Symmetry, symmetry, symmetry. Symmetry, symmetry. It's fucking the symmetries everywhere. The Empress represents abundance. Sometimes it's not the abundance of right now, it's the abundance to come. Because often she is depicted as pregnant, and she's gestating something that will birth out into the world soon. There's always just a time frame that we need to wait. But because the main card is the one from the Night Sun Tarot, and as you can see there, she has a broken shell on her lap, eggs being symbols of potential. What it is that you're to bring into the world is already out there, Taurus. So whether this is a literal creative project, whether this is a business idea, whether this is something that you have consciously started, or whether this is simply the way that Taurus is now presenting out into the world. All right, so something altogether a bit more abstract, possibly. It's already out there and it's already doing its thing. We see the confirmation of that by the fact that the Empress is showing up again. We've got peak creativity going on here, and we've got, it's like the forces of nature supporting this. Now, we've got the Knight of Pentacles and the Ten of Wands here. The Knight of Pentacles is Virgo energy, and it represents discipline and commitment to all sorts of things, right? But principally to the things that have value. As a Venus ruled sign, you are uniquely attuned to those things that have value. You yourself, Taurus, are now in a state of appreciating the value that you bring. You always brought value, you could never see it. That was the trauma, that was all sorts of things that you've experienced earlier on in life, right? Now purged, now cleansed, now you ready to teach everybody else this thing in your own inimitable way. Like, whatever it is that you have garnered from this process that you've been in, and I would say definitely since 2018, right? This is definitely, a lot has changed since then. The way that you have worked at it, right? It's always been with that coin there in your hand. What is of value? What am I working towards? This is saying you've achieved it, Taurus. It's here, right? Keep moving forwards. The Ten of Wands is burden. It's working too hard. It's being stretched too thin, right? All of these things are implied by the Ten of Wands, or overtly stated actually by the Ten of Wands. Do you know how I read this, Taurus? All of your hard work, dedication, discipline, it's about to pay off. And what does that mean? I'm not sure. Like, for some of you, it's going to be like literal. Some of you are going to be receiving, financial compensation for something, whether it's, something that you've created or something that you've pursued, whatever it is, right? There's some sort of gift here for you. Whether or not this is a literal payoff, a literal payout, a literal prize reward for you. I'm thinking by the end of November you're going to have an almost unassailable sense of your own value. Now, this is just the starting point. This takes you somewhere else. This is not the end game. You've hit a point which is, it's pretty cool, but there's other stuff that happens from here. All the hard work is about to pay off because you, Taurus, are now presenting as an Empress. I think it's interesting that it's not the Hierophant. I think if it were the Hierophant, with all that Uranian energy that's been going through your chart for the last 6 years, I think if there were anything that was, shall we say, of the negative side of the Hierophant left within you, then Uranus would probably be kicking the shit out of it before the end of his run through Taurus. I just felt like the Hierophant and the Empress speak to different aspects of the Taurian experience, right? So I had quite an issue with the Hierophant for a long time, and I struggled to see him beyond rigid, dogmatic, inflexible, stubborn, right? Things are always going to be this way because they always have been done this way. Like, I don't change. inflexible, rigid, all of those kind of things. Now I've latterly softened to the Hierophant. I see him slightly differently now. But for me, the Empress always seemed to be that that more wild and yet still truly powerful side to Taurus. You've seen how quickly nature will reclaim an abandoned building. We see it a lot out here in Bulgaria. And sometimes you look at things and you think they must have been abandoned for 30 years, and it's like, no, there was somebody living in it last year. It's just that's how quick things grow. You can almost see things growing out here. It doesn't come with a huge fanfare. It doesn't come with a fancy hat. It doesn't come with trumpets and, all of the trappings of more Hierophant-like status. But it's pretty much unstoppable because it is creation itself. Nature, the expression of creation itself. I think this is a part of you that you are really, really not intellectually appreciating, not emotionally connecting or acknowledging, but truly being now. This marks the first step on a journey that I feel has been fated for you for a very long time. And it involves increased visibility, Taurus. Whether you like it or not, it's definitely there. I don't know what you've all been up to, but I would really love to hear about it in the comments if you feel like you can share. Because I've often said that Taurus go to the top of the class to get an A star and all that kind of thing, right? But fuck me, it's like you're graduating 6 years early or something. Well, that's not entirely true, right? It's always cycles within cycles and whatever. But you are definitely taking things up to the next level now. And whatever this is here, catharsis, for sure. This is amazing. Right, I'm going to go over to the extended now. So if you'd like to join me over there, you're very welcome to do so. You can do that on Vimeo, you can do that on Circle. I'd be delighted to see you in either place. If that's not your bag, no shade, quite understand. Congratulations. On simply being comfortable in the experience of you, and also getting ready to turn around and offer your hand to those who are also trying to attain what you have managed here. And that's awesome work. It really is. Right, I'm going to go now. Apologies again for the late upload, and thank you so much for your patience. You have no idea how much I appreciate you all. Know that I love you all very, very much, and I'll see you soon.